Debt is everywhere. Governments rely on it, businesses depend on it, and households live with it every day. Yet, most of us think of debt as a personal problem, something individuals struggle with while the economy just kind of manages it. But in reality, debt isn't just part of the economy. It's one of the main forces that controls it. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and explain how debt quietly shapes our economy, why it keeps growing, and why our entire modern system depends on it. So, what is debt? Really, at its core, debt is future money pulled into the present. When someone borrows, they're spending income that doesn't exist yet. This applies to individuals taking out a mortgage, businesses borrowing to expand, or governments running deficits. Debt allows us to spend now in exchange for a promise to repay later. When this happens across an entire economy, it fundamentally changes how everything works. Here's something that might surprise you. Debt creates money. Many people assume banks just lend out existing money from savers. But in modern financial systems, that's not how it works. When a bank issues a loan, it doesn't move money from someone else's account. It creates a brand new deposit digitally, right there on the spot. That new money enters the economy immediately. This means that debt doesn't just use money, it actively expands the money supply. As borrowing increases, so does the amount of money circulating. This is exactly why modern economies depend on debt. Debt is the fuel for economic growth. When people borrow, they buy homes, start businesses, and spend more than their current income allows. All that spending supports jobs, wages, and company profits. If borrowing were to suddenly slow down, spending would slow down too, and the economy could shrink, leading to a recession. This is why our system is built around the need for continuous credit growth. Debt keeps the whole machine moving forward. Governments are some of the biggest borrowers out there. They use debt to fund public services like roads and schools, support economic growth, and respond to crises like recessions or pandemics. Borrowing allows governments to spend without immediately raising taxes, which is always a popular move. Over time, this government debt often becomes permanent. Instead of being paid off, it's simply rolled over with new debt issued to pay back the old. Debt and inflation are also closely linked. As debt expands, more money enters the economy. With more money chasing the same amount of goods, demand increases. Higher demand pushes prices up, and that's inflation. But here's the twist: inflation actually reduces the real value of existing debt. In simpler terms, the money you owe becomes worth less over time, making it easier to repay. This is one reason why debt-heavy systems tend to tolerate a certain level of inflation instead of trying to eliminate it completely. So, why does debt rarely shrink? In theory, we could reduce it. But in practice, large-scale debt almost never disappears. To reduce debt, you would need less spending, higher taxes, and slower economic growth. All of these are economically painful and politically unpopular. As a result, the easiest solution is often to use new debt to manage old debt. The system just keeps moving forward rather than ever hitting a reset button. And this doesn't just affect governments and corporations, it shapes our everyday lives. People with long-term debt, like mortgages or student loans, tend to prioritize stable income, avoid financial risks, and make safer career choices. Debt quietly guides our behavior without ever using force, but it doesn't affect everyone equally. Those with access to cheap credit, like corporations and wealthy asset owners, can use debt to grow their wealth. Meanwhile, many others use debt just to maintain their standard of living. Over time, this can increase inequality and shift economic power. Could our economy function without debt? In theory, yes. But in practice, modern economies are so deeply dependent on borrowing that it's hard to imagine. Without debt, growth would slow dramatically, spending would fall, and governments would face incredibly hard limits on what they could do. Debt has become the engine that keeps the entire system running. The focus is no longer on eliminating it, but on managing it. So the big takeaway is this: debt is not just a financial tool. It quietly shapes economic growth, inflation, government policy, and even your own individual behavior. Once you understand how debt works beneath the surface, the way our economy behaves starts to make a lot more sense. If this explanation helped you see the economy a little more clearly, subscribe for more simple breakdowns of how money and our financial systems really work. Thanks for watching.